Hey, this is Aaron,
And this is Kristin.
and this is the Drive Mode Show.
Welcome back. It's nice to see you, Aaron.
Nice to see you too.
I'll see you soon.
A couple weeks.
I know. That's gonna be great.
It's gonna be awesome. Today we're gonna talk about a brand new pickup truck that just unveiled last night, as of this recording. So early this week, when you see this, can you guess which one?
I think I know.
So you were there at the unveil for the brand new 2022 Toyota Tundra. You saw it in person. We ran some videos so you guys would see those. She talked to Joe Moses and Mike Sweers at Toyota about the truck. We've run those videos already. I'll try to link them below this so you can see them. But it's completely new for Toyota. Like
every single thing is new.
Tundra, you know. So, Kristin, highlights. What are the big points on this truck besides it's physically being big?
It's definitely big. It's bigger, and I saw it the first time when Toyota had its HQ event back in June, I guess it was. It kind of gave us a sneak peek, but we didn't really get to look inside or anything like that. This time, I got to sit in it, look at it, talk to people. I still haven't had a chance to drive it, but that's coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm looking forward to actually feeling it. There's a lot of excitement about this new Tundra, and I think there's a lot of things to talk about, from ditching the V8 in favor of the V6 to higher towing capacity to better aerodynamics. I mean, the aerodynamics themselves, that's just a really interesting story. They actually took a Tundra, put a trailer on it, and put it inside the wind tunnel to make sure that the aerodynamics are really good. And then the other thing that we should talk about too is how they've replaced the leaf springs with coils.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that they did do is they put a lot of effort into thinking about the future of this truck. So I would think of Toyota tends to think in long term. And so you can probably think of this Tundra as a 10-year truck, just like the previous generation and the generation before that. Those were long-term trucks. They were on the market for a very long time. And we can kind of expect, I think, this one to also be on the market for a fairly long time. So you have to think, is this truck still going to be useful 10 years from now with just simple things like infotainment upgrades and other things? And I think Toyota hit the mark there. I think that the V8 engine, its days are kind of numbered. Most truck makers are trying to push them to the side. Most Ford F-150 buyers are buying the 6 cylinders, not the 8. So you're just going to see that trend continue. I think we're going to see 8-cylinder engines kind of fall by the wayside. They're not nearly as efficient as a comparable turbocharged 6. For Toyota, turbo is relatively new. They're not known for turbo engines, but this is a compressed turbo, so it's similar to the way that the Mazda Skyactiv or the Ford Ecoboost work. The Ecoboost and the Skyactiv engine, they were actually designed in tandem. Ford owned a chunk of Mazda at the time. And those are based on a diesel engine design. It's a very high compression gasoline engine. And Toyota's gone kind of the same way here. But the bigger news is that they figured out how to take that same engine and put it with a hybrid system that is not like Toyota's other hybrid system. What did you learn from Sweers about that system? Because it's really interesting.
Well, I think part of the really interesting part of that story is that Mike said he had to be convinced to let the V8 go. What he really wanted was a big diesel engine. You know, he wanted the fuel economy plus big towing power. But he also said that Toyota knows its customers, and he knows that Toyota customers are active. They're people who like to tow campers, UTVs, motorcycles, snowmobiles, versus like the Ford and GM trucks where they're using them for work, right? So they're not, it's not that they're not totally engaging in the towing numbers wars, but they know that they're not going to be the highest in towing, and they know that their customers don't necessarily need that. So they're excited about this new engine. And as we know, and we've talked about before, Toyota does an incredible job with hybrids. So I think that I'm actually anticipating the drive to be great.
Well, one thing to note, that's a big difference between Toyota and the Detroit 3 when it comes to trucks, is Toyota does not have a commercial sales arm. They're not selling these trucks commercially to fleet buyers. Fleet buyers who want them they go through usually go through the same channels that I would go through if I just wanted one. The difference is, of course, they'll get a discount because you're buying maybe 10 of them, but Toyota doesn't cater to fleet buyers because it's really tough to compete with someone like Ford, who's got, I think it's 32,000 dealerships, or 3,200 dealerships. I add extra zero.
Right.
That's a lot of dealer support for a commercial truck. And Toyota just can't compete with that. It's also worth noting that the hybrid system in this truck is a single motor. So instead of the usual dual, Toyota normally has basically a CVT with two motors attached to it. The engine runs into the CVT, and the motors can either assist the engine or propel the car by itself. One of the motors usually acts as a generator and starter. And in this truck, it's different. The motor is in line with the engine's input, which means they're working in tandem. So there is no just electric driving in this truck. It's always working together. And that's the reason that the Tundra has such a huge torque number in that hybrid system, which anybody who's ever towed a trailer or ever gone off-road and tried to pull themselves out of the muck, torque is where it's at.
That's right.
With turbo, the torque curve goes like this. So you end up with a big plateau, and just like you would with diesel, which is why everybody who tows wants a diesel engine. But now you can have that diesel engine option same with the F-150 hybrid. You can have that diesel engine option as far as the torque without all the stuff that goes along with the emissions and everything else required of a diesel, scrubbers and urea and everything else you got to add to it. So it's a really interesting design. And then aerodynamics, you talked about that. It's amazing how many little things add up to one big thing.
Right. And Mike Swears was talking about these tiny little plastic vector generators, which he says is the marketing term for it. The aerodynamics, these little pieces of plastic that you put on the side, usually by the mirrors. There's some on the tailgate and on the side and on the tail lights. And it really smooths out the airflow between the truck and the trailer. And, he was saying, in the past, the leaf springs would make for a nice stable ride if you were towing, which is great. But then the ride quality in the Tundra without a trailer wasn't as good. So that's part of the reason they went to the coils.
And that totally makes sense. The leaf springs before were in sort of a V shape. So they set like this rather than being flat. So a normal leaf spring, if you look underneath an old truck, it'll be straight like this. And some of the modern trucks, if you look at them now, they're still like that. They're still like this. And they make up for that lack of torsional rigidity that has by stacking the leaves and how they compress them. What Toyota did instead of that was just turn them like this. And then you create torsional rigidity. What they've done in this new Tundra is basically what Dodge Ram has been doing for years. So Ram truck has had coil springs all the way around for a very long time. And that's why it's been the best riding truck on the road, because loaded or not, it feels really good. And they've figured out how to translate that to the heavy duty lineup. Now Toyota's following suit and doing it their way, which is a multi-compression spring. So you get the same benefit. It's extremely comfortable whether you're loaded or not. At the same time, the multi-compression allows the truck to stay level even when it's loaded, which is a tough thing to do. And truck makers spend a lot of time figuring out, what do I do when I have no load? What do I do when I have 2,000 pounds?
Right.
What do you do with that truck? Because you
Right.
don't want it to ride like a dragster, because then you have no steering. On a
That's
dragster,
right.
that's fine. You don't need to steer so much, but on the road, you kind of do.
Yeah, and I think that you really can't understate how much research and time Toyota's put into this new Tundra. I mean, like you said, this is a 10-year truck. And another part of that interesting story is that they took 3 different platforms, the F0, F1, and F2. I think the F1 is the Land Cruiser platform, and they combined the best of those 3 platforms. And they made it so you could really drop in any kind of engine they want, any kind of engine they want to do in the future. So I'm thinking that leaves them room to have an electric truck if they want to do that down the road.
I see a plug-in hybrid coming sooner than later for this, probably inside the next 2 or 3 years, because Toyota's already done that. They know how to do it, and it wouldn't be too difficult to do it with this truck. Ford skipped that step. They went straight to an EV with the Lightning. I think Toyota's going to be a little more pragmatic. They're going to take a little more time. So I expect we'll see a plug-in first. And as far as I'm concerned, if I'm a truck buyer who's buying a truck to use it as a truck, I think that's the better step anyway. I would rather have the ability to not worry about where I can find a charge, because out where I live, there aren't any options.
Yeah, forget about it.
110 outlets every so often, and that's about as good as it gets.
Well, let's shift to the look of the truck now. Okay. And I know you've got some strong feelings about this. And the first time I saw it, I really liked the kind of camo print. And they've engaged Calty on this, their design team, and it's got some really interesting patterns inside. My favorite trim, I think, is the TRD Pro, just because it's so sporty. But also, I think is it the 1741? I don't know why I can't remember the number.
1794.
Right now. 1794. Yeah, the top of the line trim is really nice. It's like the equivalent of the King Ranch for Ford.
Oh, and I've always liked that trim. Toyota hit just the kind of the right spot. I don't know about this one because I haven't seen it, but they always hit the right spot. Just enough leather to make it feel Texas, but not so much that it's in your face and over the top.
Right.
So it's not. So one of my problems with the King Ranch is there's a little too much saddle in that truck. Ram has found a good middle point. They don't tend to do that, but the King Ranch, I think, is a little too overboard on the saddle motif, whereas the 1794 has always been just right there. And they have beautiful colors for it. That copper color they have and everything for the current generation is just a wonderful color. I noticed that the one that was shown last night was more of a blue to the brown, so it was a little deeper color. I don't know if it was brown at all. It could have just been the lighting, but it was a very deep color versus the TRD Pro, which was this holy crap awesome, I thought, like sunset yellow, almost pink color. It was such a great color, something I would only see on a custom Jeep or a rat rod or something like that. I would never see this color on a production vehicle, and it's so cool. The problem is that on that particular truck, I don't think that color matches. I think it's too much. I also don't like the truck's helmet head design. It kind of has, so that they black the front pillars, so it creates this kind of just like this for the front. They call it helmet because it looks like a helmet visor. And I think I just don't like that. And the other problem I have is the cuts around the wheel arches. So the fender cuts,
I like those.
I think they're too much. I think they're too deep, too much. The overall shape of the truck is fine. I really like that. I just don't like those details. I think they're a little too overboard. They're a little too loud.
So compare it to a truck face that you do like.
So I honestly don't like the current generation Toyota truck faces either. I'm not a fan of the Tacoma's look. I don't like the current Tundra is okay, but it's old, right? It's a very old face. It looks like what trucks looked like in 2000. I like Nissan's look a lot. It's a very bold, strong, and I mean, it's named the Titan, so it needs to look like a Titan. It's a very strong look. I also like Ram trucks. Their look is it's very much them. Like you look at it and you immediately know who made that truck. There is no question. I see Ford and Chevy as kind of the contemporaries. So they're a little more, I don't know, normal, I guess. There's nothing like jumps at you with those trucks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I like them, but I don't admire it or go looking for it or anything. It doesn't jump at me when I see it. I am really glad that Chevy got away, especially General Motors, but GMC, but Chevy got away from that boxy thing where they had those heavy cuts around the wheel wells to make the squares pop out and stuff.
Right.
I didn't like that at all, and I feel like this Toyota is kind of going in that direction, and I don't like that. I'm also not a huge fan of the way that the what should be rocker boards are coming and then pointing down towards the tire on the front and especially the rear, because it just gives the impression that someone's going to stab the tire when you hit it wrong. And it just looks overdone, right? You want a truck to look like you can you can drive it and you could go to the opera or whatever during the week, but you also want to be able to drive through the brush and bounce over the hill and chase the cattle through the pasture and not worry about it. A truck needs to look like it's capable of that. And this truck doesn't look like that to me. It looks a little too pretty.
Okay, but if we go back to what we were talking about for lifestyle, do you think that Toyota truck buyers care so much about being able to take it out? I think that they're targeting that younger buyer who wants to not necessarily be ranching, but to be active and sporty.
Well, active and sporty, you're still going to be bouncing it in the wilderness. And it has to look like it can do that. And if it looks like there's a whole lot of expensive replacement that's going to happen because you hit the wrong tree, scraping through the woods, that's not a good thing. It's part of the reason the Lincoln version of the F-150 didn't sell very well, because it just looks like a really expensive replacement is going to happen sooner than later. And too much of this truck looks integrated with everything else. I miss the old 3-piece bumper where you could just, you smack the corner, so you just pull that corner off and bolt on a new one, and you're good to go. I miss that look of trucks. It's one of the reasons I really like the new Nissan Frontier, because it still has that let's go do stuff and you can beat me up look about it.
I do like the new Nissan Frontier too. I don't have the same feelings as you do about the look of the Tundra. I think it looks tough enough for the market, for its market. And I'm really looking forward to driving it. So tell me, what are you looking forward to? Like, what do you think you're going to feel when you do drive it?
I'm looking forward to seeing how using a little more influence from the Land Cruiser improves the TRD series for off-road. Because I've always enjoyed off-roading in Toyotas. The Tundra has usually been at the bottom of the list, but now they finally have a locking rear differential, and the mixing of coil springs or of leaf springs and going to coils is also going to be a big deal as far as grip and movement. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to seeing how well it tows, especially in the hybrid model, because the towing in turbocharged models is hit and miss. Some of them are really good at it, some of them not so much. And they can be from the same brand and have that problem.
Yeah, true.
So I'm really looking forward to that, because I think that they boosted the torque output by it's like 150 foot-pounds or more. It's a huge jump.
Yeah, they jumped the towing by a ton.
Yeah, it's up 12,000 pounds with the base engine.
Right.
That's crazy.
It's a big jump. It's a big jump. It's going to be interesting to see how the buyers feel about it. So we'll find out soon.
I think we will, but I am looking forward to it, at least, if for nothing else, just so that I can find out if I'm totally wrong. It may look way better in person than it does in pictures. I've had other vehicles that have been like that.
Maybe so.
Maybe
Either
so.
way, we're going to have some fun with it.
All right. This is Aaron.
And this is Kristin.
This is the Drive Mode Show.